Hello and welcome to Parsha Pulse Episode 1. We are starting with the very first Parsha in the Torah, Parshas Bereshis. As usual, we're going to be starting with the brief overview and then the insight into the Parsha. This week's Parsha starts off with the 7 days of creation, starting with the very first creation, which traditionally was the creation of time, and culminating with the very last creation, which was the creation of Shabbos, which was the seventh day. After which, the Torah zooms in on the events that took place on the sixth day. The Torah talks about the creation of man and how he was placed in the Garden of Eden, and how initially he was created as male and female in one body, but then God decided to separate them into two separate entities. The idea being that when two people get together and get married, it's not the creation of a new union, but the coming together and the reunion of something that was previously one entity. The Torah talks about the first commandment that was given to mankind. That was the commandment for Adam to enjoy all the trees in the Garden of Eden, except for two trees, the tree of life and the tree of knowledge. Then the Torah talks about the sin of eating from the tree of knowledge and the punishments that came afterwards. And then Adam and Eve are kicked out from the Garden of Eden. After that, the Torah discusses how Adam and Eve's children, Cain and Hevel, Cain is jealous of Hevel and ends up killing him. Cain then repents and God delays his punishment for several generations. One of Cain's descendants, many years later, ends up killing Cain by mistake, and that's when Cain got his punishment. And then the Torah kind of zooms out and gives us an overview of the 10 generations from Adam until Noah, and how during those generations there was a degeneration of the ethics and morals of the world, and the world started spiraling out of control. And then we are introduced to next week's Parsha's hero, Noah, who was born 10 generations after Adam, and he will be the future for the world. That is the summary, and now for the insight. So the first word of the Parsha is Bereshis. That's how the Torah starts off, the word Bereshis. If you notice, the Be is the Hebrew letter Beis. The first Hebrew letter in the Torah is the letter Beis, and it seems kind of strange. If you're starting the Torah, shouldn't you be using the first letter of the alphabet, the letter Aleph? And there's actually a medrash that discusses this and says that really this was an argument that the letter Aleph raised to God and said, hey, why aren't I the first letter of the Torah? And God said, don't worry, you're going to be the first letter of the 10 commandments, because the 10 commandments start with the word Anochi, which is an Aleph. So the only issue with that medrash is that if you've ever seen the Hebrew alphabet, they don't usually really engage in conversation so much. You can never see an Aleph arguing with a Beis. So what is going on with that medrash? And what that medrash is actually trying to teach us is that in life, when we make decisions, we tend to focus on our comfort and on our physical needs much more than the needs of our soul. So for example, if you're choosing somewhere to work or a city to live in, usually what we do is we focus on where we're going to be most comfortable. And once we're there, we say, okay, now what should I do about finding a synagogue, or is this a good community for my own spiritual growth? Are there any Jewish programming in the area? And really it should be the other way around. We should be focusing on our spiritual needs, and then secondary but still important is our physical needs. And that's what the Torah is trying to teach us. So the beginning of the Torah, which discusses the physical creation of the world, that's where we get the letter Beis, the second letter in the alphabet. And then when we go on to discuss the 10 commandments, our goals and our missions in life, that is when the letter Aleph comes up to say this is our first priority and everything else is our second priority. Thank you very much for listening, and looking forward to next week.